This is Sky News with Samantha Simmons.
Hello there, good morning. We start with a Sky News exclusive about just how honest our MPs are when they're answering questions in Parliament, something they are, of course, legally required to do truthfully. A new study, which is the most extensive of its kind, says politicians give a straight answer to fewer than half the questions. And it also reveals the worst offenders. Tom Cheshire reports.
Isn't it the case his three biggest claims are his three biggest failures?
The more he talks, the less he actually says. Nothing.
They're used to dodging questions from each other.
Or is it because there's one rule for the Prime Minister and another for the rest of us? Do you know what? Until he apologises, I'm not going to answer his questions.
From journalists.
Good morning, Mr. Clegg. Was there an attempted coup against you?
Even from children.
What's 7 times 8?
I'm not going to get into a whole string of... I'm not going to...
I really hope, just for once, we would get a straight answer.
And now, according to the most extensive survey of its kind, politicians give a straight answer to fewer than half of the questions asked in Parliament. Yes or no answers are pretty rare here in Westminster, but over the last decade, there have been 275,000 votes on 128,000 written questions in Parliament from users of theyworkforyou.com. It's a huge data set that gives a unique insight into public perception of MPs' honesty. According to the public vote, only 46% of written questions have been properly answered. The most evasive departments in Whitehall are the Department for Work and Pensions, which the public thought fully answered only 39% of questions, and the Treasury on just 37%. The Wales office is seen as the most straight-talking on 66%. Gordon Brown and John Prescott come out worse among individual politicians with 16% and 21% respectively. David Cameron and Ed Miliband are pretty evenly matched on 38% and 36%, but Nick Clegg is far ahead of both of them on 54%. Individual ratings could be affected by the department where that politician works, though. David Jones and his office have come out well.
And some questions can be difficult, and if you're having difficulty in answering a question for whatever reason, just explain what the difficulty is.
The numbers show politicians are getting less and less transparent, but digital tools could help reverse that.
There's still a lot that needs to be done in terms of politicians, I think, making themselves more accessible to the public, and a big part of that is actually just, straight talking and sort of fair dealing with the public, and not all this sort of, legalistic ways they find to avoid answering or to give out, the simple truth.
Written questions in the House date back 300 years, and old habits die hard. The public, especially young people, are unconvinced things are going to get more straightforward anytime soon.
I think they're going to tell you what you want to hear.
Not just going to be like, oh, yeah, that's true.
They give you a question they want you to answer. You're just going to, no, I don't trust them.
A decade of data sourced online has at least placed Parliament under more scrutiny. Tom Cheshire, Sky News.
Let's take you live to Westminster. Darren McCaffrey is there for us this morning. Morning to you, Darren. Well, some pretty embarrassing and potentially damaging revelations here.
Indeed, Samantha, as you say, embarrassing and potentially could cause a lot of damage. We just had to listen to that guy at the end of the report there who said, I just don't trust them. And it really boils down to trust in lots of ways. We have to remember it's at a pretty low ebb and hasn't really recovered since the MP's expenses scandal 5 years ago. And so if there is a perception amongst the public that politicians aren't answering questions honestly, well, that's going to cause some problems. And it's not just written questions, Samantha, as well. We know that Andy Burnham this weekend, the Shadow Health Secretary, is writing to the Information Commissioner to investigate whether David Cameron gave out wrong statistics on NH waiting times during Prime Minister's question time this week. But I think, to be fair to politicians, we all like yes and no answers. It's not always that easy in politics. Of course, government's pretty complex, and it's not easy to give a straightforward answer. And I suppose they have to take that into account, that we can't always satisfy the public's demand for an either yes or no response.
All right, Darren, thank you. Well, you've been tweeting us to let us know what you think of the honesty of politicians. What are people saying, Hannah?
Yeah, well, we've had a couple of messages so far. Big Bob has messaged me to say MPs must be honest to keep integrity and respect from the voters, otherwise they risk being dumped out of Parliament, which is interesting in itself. Should we be able to fire our MPs effectively, even if they're sort of mid-term? Ant Mac has also tweeted to say, do I trust my MP? Well, I don't think we see our MP unless it's election time. He's tweeting from Liverpool. And also, DJ Michael has tweeted to say, hi there, I don't trust our MPs at all. The only one who speaks out is Nigel Farage, who's, of course, MEP and UKIP leader.
Yeah, and going to be standing next year for the elections. And with those elections coming up, trust is going to be a huge issue. So do let us know what you think. Keep those tweets and emails coming in at Sky Samantha, at Sky Talit, or news@sky.com for emails.
To other news this